Welcome to another episode of the Riffle podcast series brought to you by 10 Leaves. And welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are really getting into something important, DIFC Data Protection Regulation 10. This is a big one, especially if you're working with, advanced tech like AI systems that handle personal data, right? So our mission today, let's call it that, is to cut through all the legal jargon. We want to figure out how Regulation 10 is actually trying to regulate the technology itself, not just the companies using it. We're looking for those real aha moments in compliance, especially around accountability and these new technical checks.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting, I think, is that Regulation 10 isn't just, more forms to fill out. It's a deliberate, major step towards putting privacy by design and default into practice for AI. It really lines up the DIFC with global standards like the OECD guidelines for AI. It's the DIFC saying, okay, we need to properly vet this complex tech based on risk right from the beginning.
Okay, let's start there then with that design philosophy. If privacy by design is the aim, what are the core principles these AI systems absolutely must have baked in from day one, even before they're deployed?
Yeah, this is the foundation.
Yeah.
And it applies, like you said, right from the design phase. There are 5 key ones: ethics, fairness, transparency, security, and accountability. These are mandatory.
We hear those words a lot, right? Ethics, fairness. But what does that mean in practice for, say, an AI developer? Are we asking them to code a conscience?
Well, sort of. But it's practical. Take fairness, for instance. It means you actually have to design and test the system to reduce algorithmic bias before it goes live. And transparency. That means building in ways to log and document how the system makes decisions, or at least the logic behind them, so it can be audited. These aren't just suggestions for a company policy somewhere. They demand technical features, things built into the architecture to support ethical outcomes.
Got it. So that sets the kind of philosophical and technical baseline. But how do companies show they're doing this day to day? What are the real operational things firms in the DIFC have to do now when using AI with personal data?
Right, it moves from design theory to actual evidence pretty quickly. There are 3 really critical requirements here, focused on visibility and proof. Okay, first, if an application uses AI, it has to give a clear and explicit notice the very first time someone uses it. And this notice isn't buried in the terms. It needs to clearly explain any potential impact the AI might have on a person's rights.
So it's like a supercharged cookie banner, but focused on the risks of the AI itself.
Exactly, but maybe with more significant implications. Second, companies have got to be ready to provide evidence proof of their technical and organizational measures. They need to show this to people affected, to other relevant parties, or, crucially, to the regulator whenever asked. The burden of proof is squarely on them. And finally, there's a requirement to maintain an AI register. This has to track all the specific use cases for the AI system, detailing its design principles and how it complies.
Wow, that register sounds like a bit of an operational lift, but I can see why it's needed for traceability, a constantly updated record of every time the AI touches user data. Okay, so those cover general use, but things get more intense when the processing is considered high risk, right? That seems to be the major trigger point.
That's exactly right. That's where Regulation 10 really brings in the heavy hitters: mandatory certification and specialized oversight roles. Its strongest rules apply when personal data is processed for AI, either used in the system or for its learning, and it counts as high-risk processing for commercial purposes under the main DIFC DP law. When that happens, 2 big things kick in. First, the AI system itself, the actual technology, has to be certified under a scheme the DIFC commissioner sets up. And second, the company has to appoint an autonomous systems officer, or ASO.
Okay, wait, let's pause on that first one. Certifying the system. That sounds like a huge shift. We usually certify companies or maybe processes, not the code itself. Why do that? What does that mean for a company using AI?
It's a really crucial distinction, mainly because the AI supply chain can be so complex. Traditional rules focus on the controller, the company, using the data. But if the AI model itself is inherently biased or flawed, just regulating the company using it doesn't fix the root problem. So by requiring certification of the system, the algorithms, the data model, the code, the DIFC is demanding a technical check of the technology itself. This means even if a system is built somewhere else and then sold into the DIFC, the tech has to meet the standard before it can be used commercially for high-risk stuff locally.
Ah, okay. So the technology itself has to prove it's safe, not just the local company promising to use it carefully.
Precisely. And overseeing that is where the new ASO role comes in.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really interesting, adding this parallel role to the Data Protection Officer, the DPO.
So tell us about the ASO. Is this just a DPO with a tech focus, or is it fundamentally different? What kind of power do they have?
Well, the ASO is basically the designated watchdog for that specific AI system's compliance. The regulation says they need to have pretty much the same level of competence, status, and tasks as a DPO under the main DP law. What that means, in practical terms, is independence. They need expertise in automated systems, sure, but crucially, they can't be told how to do their job by the deployer, the company using the AI. And very importantly, they must report directly to the top, the board, or the CEO. This ensures the ASO's assessment of high-risk systems can't just be ignored or watered down. Now, a company can choose to have the same person be both DPO and ASO, but the function that specialized independent oversight for AI is mandatory regardless.
That required independence really highlights how seriously high-risk AI is being taken.
Okay, so we have the human oversight with the ASO and the tech check with certification. Who's actually responsible if things go wrong? Regulation 10 sets out 3 key roles, right? How do they map to controller and processor? Yes, and this clarity on accountability is really helpful. There are 3 defined roles. First, the deployer. That's the entity directing or benefiting from the AI system. So yeah, basically like a controller under the DP law. They call the shots on purpose and means. Second, you have the operator. This is often a provider who supervises the system for the deployer. Think of this role as similar to a processor acting on instructions. And third, the provider. This is the entity that actually develops the AI system or pays for it to be developed with the aim of selling it. This structure helps trace responsibility across the whole lifecycle.
Okay, let's use that certification rule again to make this concrete. Say a DIFC company buys a really advanced but uncertified AI system from overseas for a high-risk purpose. Who has to get it certified? The local deployer or operator?
The responsibility lands firmly on the DIFC entity involved in the high-risk processing. If a DIFC firm is the deployer of that uncertified system for commercial high-risk use, they must get it certified before they deploy it. They can't just say, oh, we didn't build it. The buck stops with them. And similarly, if the DISC firm is acting as the operator, maybe running the platform for someone else, they also have to ensure it's certified before operating it commercially for that high-risk purpose. The regulation is clear.
Yeah.
Whether you're directing the use or just running the tech, if it's high-risk AI in the DIFC, you're the gatekeeper for certification. It forces local firms to do some serious technical due diligence.
That's a pretty significant burden operationally and maybe financially, but you can see how it forces quality control right at the point of use. For companies grappling with this, certifying the tech and setting up this ASO role, is there any help available?
Yeah, absolutely. They aren't expected to figure this all out in a vacuum. The Commissioner's Office is actively providing support. They're offering things like training, workshops, and pretty detailed guidance on assessing privacy by design, handling the certification, and setting up the ASO role effectively. Definitely check out the FAQs and the specific guidance on the accreditation and certification framework. It's all on the DIFC website. It's a must-read.
Okay, so stepping back, if we boil this down for everyone listening, the core takeaway from Regulation 10 seems to be this double shift. Regulating the technology itself through certification and mandating the specialized independent human oversight through the ASO.
Exactly. And connecting that to the bigger picture, this structure is designed so responsibility doesn't just vanish in the complexity of the AI supply chain. It's a very pragmatic approach. It recognizes that when algorithms make high-stakes decisions, just relying on traditional company policies isn't enough. You need to vet the tech and ensure strong human accountability at the highest level. Which leads to, I think, a really important question for you, the listener, to consider as you adapt to this. Given that it's the system being certified, not just the company, and you need this ASO alongside the DPO for high-risk activities, how fundamentally do organizations need to change their internal data governance? Their budgets, their reporting structures, how their tech and compliance teams work together. How do you truly integrate these technical checks with effective, independent human oversight? Getting that integration right is probably the key to succeeding under Regulation 10.
That internal restructuring, that integration challenge, that really is the heart of it. Thank you so much for walking us through Regulation 10 today and making these critical changes so much clearer.
My pleasure. Happy to help break it down.
Welcome to another episode of the Riffle, a podcast series brought to you by 10 Leaves.